Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're drilling down into the complexities of liver health.
A huge topic.
It is a huge topic. We've taken a comprehensive stack of research here, metabolic studies, toxicology reports, you name it. And our mission is, well, it's pretty simple. We want to cut through all the confusion that's out there about liver disease. We want to isolate the actual causes and critically identify what really works.
The most effective nutritional strategy.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and it's arguably the most important dive we can take, because when we talk about the liver, I mean, we are talking about the body's ultimate powerhouse.
Right.
It does over 500 things. It's neutralizing toxins. It's processing nutrients, managing fat metabolism. Fatty liver disease is, well, it's basically a symptom of this amazing organ just getting overloaded.
And the research points to this really dramatic shift in what's causing that overload.
It does.
We used to think of serious liver problems and immediately think of alcohol consumption.
Right, that was the main association.
But the data now shows that the vast majority of new cases aren't linked to alcohol, they're linked to our diet, specifically to insulin resistance.
Which is driven by getting way too much fuel from sugars and starches. That metabolic mechanism, that's the critical starting point.
Okay, so let's start there. Insulin.
Insulin. It's the body's main storage hormone. So when the fuel you eat, the carbs and sugars, is more than you need for immediate energy, insulin levels go up.
And that's the signal.
That's the signal. It tells the liver, hey, we have an overflow, convert this extra fuel into fat for long-term storage.
So if you're constantly in that state of overflow,
your insulin is always high. And it just forces the liver into this perpetual fat-making mode. And then that fat buildup actually damages the liver cells, which makes them less responsive to insulin.
So it just gets worse, a vicious cycle.
A vicious cycle. It just drives that insulin resistance higher and higher.
And this is where we have to tackle a huge misconception right away. Because for decades, we've been told to fear saturated fat.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, look at red meat and worry about heart disease, liver disease. What do our sources say about that classic villain?
They're overwhelmingly clear. Saturated fat is not the primary driver of this.
Really?
The real issue is the constant conversion of excess fuel, specifically carbohydrates, into saturated fat by the liver itself.
Wow. So the liver is making the fat, not just storing the fat we eat.
It's making it. Exactly. And if you follow that trail of excess fuel, you get to the #1 dietary culprit, excess sugar, and particularly fructose.
Fructose is different from other sugars.
Right. Fundamentally different from glucose. Glucose can be used by almost every cell in your body for energy. Fructose, on the other hand, is metabolized almost entirely by the liver.
So it's a direct hit.
It's a direct hit. Too much fructose just overwhelms the liver, forces it to immediately convert it all into fat. There are no checks and balances like there are with glucose.
I think this is so important for listeners because it really challenges that idea that natural sugar from fruit is always safe. You know, people will skip a soda, but then drink a huge glass of fruit juice or eat a massive fruit salad.
Quantity absolutely matters. The liver doesn't care if the fructose came from high fructose corn syrup or a giant serving of fruit. The dose makes the poison.
So for someone trying to heal an overloaded liver.
For them, yeah, even highly concentrated natural sources like a lot of watermelon, mango, pineapple, those can be just as bad as added sugar. They push that same fat production button in the liver.
Okay, so damage mechanism #1 is insulin resistance, fueled by sugar and starch. What about the other big stressor fats that are, damaged before we even eat them? Let's talk about fried foods and cooking oils.
Right. And fried foods get a bad rap for the calories, but the real issue is the oil's quality and stability.
The type of oil.
The type of oil. The true toxic concern is that the fat has become damaged, it's oxidized, it's rancid before it ever enters your body. Most commercial fried foods use these really sensitive polyunsaturated vegetable oils.
Like soybean or canola oil.
Soybean, corn, canola, exactly. They are chemically unstable. When you heat them up, their chemical bonds break down really fast, and that creates toxic compounds, free radicals.
And what does that damage actually do inside the body?
Well, those oxidized fats are immediately toxic. When your liver gets them, it has to go into crisis mode. It has to use up its most precious resources, specifically its reserves of something called glutathione, to neutralize this massive oxidative stress. And that sudden demand just depletes the liver's ability to do its normal job.
It just brings everything to a grinding halt.
Pretty much.
That's a staggering load.
Yeah.
Which brings up a great question. Why do the sources say that stable saturated fats like coconut oil or lard are actually better for high-heat cooking? Isn't that counterintuitive if you're trying to clear fat from the liver?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know, but the key word is stability.
Okay.
Saturated fats or even stable monounsaturated fats like in avocado oil, they have a molecular structure that just resists breaking down under heat.
So they don't create those toxic free radicals.
They don't. So they pass through your system without forcing that emergency cleanup response from the liver. We have to separate clean, stable fats that are fuel from oxidized inflammatory fats that are just straight up toxins.
Perfect. So we avoid the damaging fats, but we absolutely have to include fats that help the liver repair itself.
Yes. We have to talk about the beneficial fats.
So what does the literature point to?
We need to focus on essential fats, particularly omega-3s. You find those in high concentrations in fatty fish or good quality eggs.
And why are they so critical?
They are powerfully anti-inflammatory, but they also, and this is key, they improve the fluidity of your cell membranes. This helps the liver cells actually receive hormonal signals properly, including the signal from insulin.
So they help break that cycle of insulin resistance.
They do. They help break the cycle. And then, of course, we love the stable monounsaturated fats from things like extra virgin olive oil, clean energy, no inflammation.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what to avoid, about stopping the damage. Now let's pivot to the second part. Rebuilding. What are the key nutritional building blocks the liver needs to repair itself?
Now we're looking at nutrient-dense, low-carb whole foods. And here, the sources are just so consistent about the power of meat and eggs.
Why them specifically?
They provide this amazing package of complete protein, stable fats, and all the micronutrients you need for regeneration. We really need to talk about the amino acids.
Okay, which ones are we targeting?
Methionine is a big one. Meat is incredibly rich in it, and methionine is what your body needs to synthesize its own supply of glutathione.
Ah, so there's that connection. And remind us, why is glutathione so indispensable in this whole process?
People call it the body's master antioxidant. Think of it as the ultimate detoxification utility player.
The cleanup crew.
The ultimate cleanup crew. The liver uses it to neutralize toxins, heavy metals, pharmaceutical residue, and yes, those oxidized fats we just talked about. If the liver is under constant attack, it just runs out of glutathione.
So by eating meat, you're giving it the raw materials to restock.
You're giving it the building blocks to make more so it can get back to healing itself.
And what about eggs? They have their own special role to play, right?
Absolutely. Eggs are one of the best sources of choline.
A nutrient a lot of people don't think about.
No, and it's critical. Choline acts as a catalyst for fat metabolism inside the liver. Here's how it works. For the liver to get rid of fat, it has to package it up into lipoproteins to ship it out.
Okay.
Choline is essential for making those packages. If you're low on choline, the fat gets trapped inside the liver cells, just making the problem worse.
And eggs also have B vitamins, which help with that detox process, too.
They do. They directly support the repair work.
And we shouldn't forget the plant kingdom here, especially when it comes to, boosting those detox pathways.
For sure. Cruciferous vegetables, chorizo, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, they contain these unique compounds like sulforaphane.
And what do?
They act as powerful signaling agents. They don't provide the building blocks themselves, but they kickstart the liver's own detoxification enzymes. They basically help the machinery work better.
Okay, let's unpack a tricky category that needs some nuance. Grains and beans. They have this health halo, right? Recommended for fiber. How do they fit in here?
This is where we really have to emphasize a personalized approach.
Right.
I mean, look, whole grains and beans have fiber. They're much better than refined sugars, obviously. But the core issue for this problem remains the glucose load.
Even complex carbs break down into glucose.
They do, which means they require an insulin response. For someone who is already insulin resistant, who's struggling with a fatty liver, every time they eat a big portion of grains or starchy beans,
they're just contributing to that high insulin environment.
They're fueling the very engine that's driving the fat accumulation.
So the nuance isn't about good or bad foods in a vacuum. It's about whether they're appropriate for the goal of reversal.
Precisely. If your number one goal is to heal your liver and aggressively lower your insulin, the sources suggest that cutting back on high glucose foods like grains and starches, it might be essential.
It all comes down to individual tolerance. If you're metabolically healthy, you exercise, you can probably handle them fine.
You might. But if you have clinical signs of insulin resistance, these foods, despite their reputation, can actively hold you back. The advice for a healthy marathon runner is not the healing protocol for someone with metabolic syndrome.
That makes perfect sense. And that brings us to the big takeaway, which really ties all our sources together. There's no magic superfood that fixes this.
No. Healing requires a root cause approach. Step one is stopping the damage. You have to stop the overload from sugars, starches, alcohol, toxic oils.
And step two is providing the building blocks for repair.
Right. Prioritizing those nutrient-rich, stable, low-carb whole foods.
It's about respecting the liver's own ability to heal. I mean, it's amazing. But you have to stop the constant bombardment first.
You do. You have to stop the damage and supply the high-quality raw materials it needs to make things like choline and glutathione and, repair its own cells. It's a two-pronged strategy, removal and rebuilding.
And for you listening, remember that knowing these specific mechanisms is power. Understanding how your body processes fructose differently, why oxidized oils are so damaging, that helps you cut through all the noise out there.
It lets you make informed choices that really support your health long-term.
Well said.
And if we acknowledge that high insulin is the engine driving this whole problem, maybe think about this as you go through your week. What's one small, sustainable change you could make in your daily fuel intake? Something beyond just cutting out obvious sugar. What could you do to most significantly disrupt that constant storage mechanism and just give your liver a much-needed break, something to mull over?